Welcome back, everyone, to the Broker Room podcast. I'm Michael Simon, and today we have with us Robert August joining. Welcome, Robert.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so
Th-
much for having me participate in this outstanding forthcoming podcast.
Thank you, sir. Very happy to have you here. And Robert, you've been in real estate now for 54 years as a builder, developer, brokerage owner, and now running North Star Synergies, consulting nationally and in 10 countries. You're a National Association of Home Builders Hall of Famer, the youngest sales and marketing director of the year back in 1983, and you've personally marked or closed over 60 billion in real estate. And most importantly, you've built your entire career around one simple idea: sell the experience. That's the kind of wisdom our listeners need right now. So, having said that, let's, jump right in. Take us back to the beginning. How did your journey begin and how did it lead you to where you are today?
My brother left me at the age of 5 on the corner of our neighborhood where we lived. And we were selling comic books and lemonade. And and he had something else to do and whatever. And I just started selling all by myself. And I haven't stopped since. So that's where it all began. I was very, very fortunate to grow up in a wonderful family business. We were in the wine and spirits industry. I learned to wine a lot while having a lot of spirit doing it. And in essence, uh, I was taught at the very, very beginning of my career, if you will, even at the age of 5, that it's all about the experience. Our products were excellent, never had customer service issues while I was growing up or had ever heard about. Uh, our, and what I was taught by my third generation father in the family business, what sets us apart is always trying to be a step or two ahead of the market, paying attention to what buyers want, not what we think they want, but what research indicates that they want. And as I grew up in the real estate industry, it was transformed from an experiential basis. If the customer doesn't like your product, she will let you keep it. And in essence, in residential real estate, women pretty much make the decision as to the acquisition of a home. If it's a gay couple, it's the one that's most effeminate. And it's always very, very interesting, Michael, because at the end of the day, it really is about sharing experience and making the purchase opportunity and the decision opportunity so much more fun rather than a stressful situation. And when you can translate that, into a positive direction, you're going to sell more product and service of whatever it is that you're trying to market and sell.
Yeah, fully agreed. And, thank you for giving us, a bit of a flashpoint there of, how you got started and how you ended up to where you are today. Really incredible run. And now you and your son run, North Star Synergies, working with builders, developers, and manufacturers across the country and internationally. So what does, a typical engagement look like for you these days?
Uh, I'm going to make you smile, Michael.
Mhm.
Uh, there's an outstanding book that I would encourage all of your listeners to read. It's called The 4 Minute Sell, and it's by an author by the name of Janet Elsia. E is in Edgar, L is in Look, S is in Sam, E is in Edgar, A is in August. And Janet believes, and I believe, after reading her outstanding book decades ago, uh, within the first 4 minutes, you decide very quickly if the customer is worthy from a business to business standpoint. In my background, I get a sense of whether they're paying attention to me, whether there's an eye focus on me, or are they distracted. I pay attention to their verbiage, how they respond to questions I ask. I look for both tacit, which is nonverbal communication, as well as verbal communication. And in essence, of course, uh, getting to know the customer much deeper than 4 minutes is extremely valuable. But for the most part, you can determine almost immediately whether you want to work with somebody or not. And then you take it to the next step. If the people, frankly, are not nice, if they don't treat their employees well, if through our due diligence they don't pay their bills on time, they don't respect their manufacturers, vendors, trade, service companies, we don't want to work with them.
Mhm.
And I have turned down more business, Michael, over the years because, frankly, I don't want to work with people who are not nice. And as a direct result, we look for the companies that want to grow, that want to scale. We look for the companies that want to uh, leave the planet, if you will, having done everything that they could possibly do to enrich the universe, to enrich humanity. And I know it sounds almost coy, but when you reflect on the people with whom you've worked over the years, I'm sure that you and your audience will resonate. It's much easier to work with nice people than it is to work with negative individuals. And part of my career, after leaving the family business uh, as a full-time employee, I went to work for a multinational corporation. And one of their divisions was a company called Ridge Homes. And we had 214 franchise builders throughout the United States participating in this company. And I entered the real estate industry on a full-time basis in customer service. Nobody ever called except one customer with thousands and thousands of homes that we had sold. Only one customer called to say thank you. Everybody else called to complain. They complained about, our company, the franchisee that we had, who wasn't doing what it said it would do. And and for 2 years, I handled negativity along with 22 other employees in the customer service department. And I learned pragmatically and academically how to take a negative situation and spin it into a positive direction. Always looking for solutions, always finding a way to appease the customer without costing the company more than what was standard operational procedure. The big thing is in determining where we go as a company, it's working with people who are grounded, people who want to do the best job possible for themselves, their employees, and foremost the customers with whom they work.
Yeah, that's very well said. I mean, at the end of the day, we all have our businesses. We want to make money, do well, sure, but eventually you have to ask yourself at what cost. And to sum up everything that you had just described, I personally, and I'm sure everybody watching as well, would much rather be in the business of, working with those who truly do care about the experience, about their employees, and who they're working with on a business to business scale. Absolutely. And, what else you mentioned too that really, caught my interest was, trying to stay on top of everything, as we're in a constantly changing environment. And the real estate world, as you know, has changed dramatically in the last few years when we look at, interest rates, inventory shortages, shifting buyer expectations, and the rise of institutional investors. So, from your vantage point as someone who's seen multiple cycles, what do you think are the biggest trends you're seeing right now in residential development and brokerage that most people are missing?
That's a really great question, Michael. I'm going to share with you and the audience a couple of learning points that I learned as well.
Mm,
And it's interesting. I have experienced nine economic declines
mm,
and and in multiple situations. And of course, the biggest economic implosion that took place was in 2000, at the end of 2008, drifting into 9, 10, and 11. And out of that uh, came a lot of resilience. But the main point that I'll share with the audience is that anyone who came into the industry after 2011 does not understand the economic decline that we all experienced in that time period.
mhm,
And it's tough. It was very, very humbling. In the real estate industry, nationwide, our building companies, developers, manufacturing, uh, vendors, trade, service companies, we lost approximately 80% of those employees throughout the United States. And they shifted these individuals who left the industry shifted into other service oriented companies and continued. But we didn't have a rebound cycle where these people all came back into the industry. What really happened was our industry learned to synthesize. For example, national companies became more centralized in their approach to doing business, where they created templates for businesses to follow the script. And the only thing that changed in the real estate world, frankly, which you couldn't create a template for, was the local market. The local jurisdictions controlled how any product in real estate would be built. So you couldn't learn from, for example, Toll Brothers, headquartered in metropolitan Philadelphia, couldn't apply the same government affairs applications and procedures and protocols in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, because you were dealing with different jurisdictions. Here, for example, in metropolitan Denver, we have 34 jurisdictions controlling the building process. And so in different markets, even in Rhode Island, you're going to find that what goes on in one jurisdiction does not go on exactly the same in another. So the learning curve has really changed. The other thing I mean, everything is relative in the sense of where markets are. Uh, I had tremendous success with interest rates, Michael, rising from 9 7/8% for a mortgage, upwards of 13, upwards of 16%. And nobody could figure out how we were so successful in a very challenging market. And it's the process of learning to learn, never resting on your laurels, always looking ahead. What can I do every day to make a difference for the companies we represent and for the customers that we serve, whether it's B2B or B2C? And as a result, you and all the people that you train to excel and to always look for the rainbow and to take what they're learning and really enhance the performance and treat every customer with lots of love, consideration, cooperation, attention to detail, and follow up. The ability to continue to stay in front of those customers, whether they have become a customer or they have become a customer, is so important because uh, the biggest thing that I will leave you in the audience with today, or the biggest exclamation point, is that most salespeople and most business people never follow up after the first visit. Whether it's a phone call, an email, whether it's a direct face-to-face opportunity, 95% of everyone is never followed up. And what salespeople and businesses don't understand, customers, there's an adage in our business that buyers are liars. That's not true. Buyers are not liars. Buyers are afraid. And it doesn't make a difference whether, again, you're dealing business to business or business to consumer. They're not going to tell you. I mean, just reflect on your first dates, from a social perspective. Did you tell your date everything about you? Did you convey 100% of everything about you? The answer is no. Nobody does. It takes time to build I've written courses. I've written well over 1,000 articles in my career. And in sales, the three most important pillars are in creating an outstanding relationship are building trust, building respect, and building rapport. And when you can establish all three of those items, as in the movie Jerry Maguire, you had me at hello. It really becomes very, very simple, from a human interest perspective to pay attention to your buyer all the time and recognize that there are different phases in building trust, respect, and rapport.
Absolutely. And that's not just tied to, the real estate industry either. Any type of sales business that you're in, if you don't have those three components to form that foundation, really, you don't have anything. I mean, you could have the best product in the world, but if they don't like you, if they don't trust you, if they don't know you, like who's going to want to do business with you? So I'm in full agreement on that. And, when you try to centralize everything too, like you had mentioned, that's going to lead to problems also because when you do that, not everybody's going to have a one size fits all solution. Everyone and everywhere is different. So you need to make sure that everything is personalized, like you had said as well, in order to make sure you're giving out the best experience. And to tack on to what I had, asked before about, seeing the new trends and what's happening in the industry today, now I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up, the topic of AI. So, when it comes to how AI has impacted the industry today, how have you seen it personally impact your business? And by extension, have you seen it, impact anybody, else's that you know as well?
Well, I would share with you very simply, if you're not adhering to the new, and I wouldn't call it new, but it's becoming very refreshing to look at the application of AI. And we can talk about it in real estate. We can talk about it in personal purchases, goods and services. It's tremendous, and it's outstanding and extraordinary. And every day, we keep learning to learn. Fortunately, I have 2 amazing sons who take after their mother. They're brilliant, and they, I'm a relatively pragmatic, academic sort of an individual. I'm not as computer versed as the rest of the universe. I've learned how to certainly take advantage of technology. I have written courses with AI, over the last several years. I've written articles. I've also used it, from the perspective of creating a series of new products and services as well. But when you have, for example, 2 children, I mean, my children are not young at this point. They're very seasoned professionals. The oldest is 50, the youngest is 47.
Hmm.
But they've been using AI for 4 years. And they've
Yeah.
been able to teach me, how to use the technology and expand it into my business background. Right now, through another business associate that is very tech savvy, we're creating an AI program with a digital sales assistant, with a digital sales manager, and as a direct result, we've already beta tested our program and will be bringing it to businesses literally within the next 3 weeks. But what it does, it enhances the performance. It works 24/7, and as I shared with you earlier, most leads are never followed up.
Yeah.
This will follow up with the leads. This will be able to direct the inbound information from a customer calling in all the way through to handling all the customer questions based on a series of questions that we've put together. Can you imagine, Michael, our AI team that we created
Hmm.
has 18 performers with 18 different disciplines in the business background. So, for example, and they're all literally VPs, VP of technology, VP of sales, VP of marketing. So, what we've been able to do is integrate the thousands of speeches that I've given over the years, the over 1,000 articles that I've written, the policy and procedure manuals that I have written over the course of my business career, and in being in one career literally for over 50 years, and being very prolific in giving presentations, sales training, marketing training, management training, all of these things that I've learned over the years have been integrated into this platform. So, over the next several weeks, after we've gone through the beta test, we'll reach out to manufacturers initially, and I'll tell you a story, and I won't name companies, but this is really important. What I'm going to share with you. Uh, I have found that a lot of the salespeople today, they put their time in, and they're doing all okay to a degree. But I'm going to share this story with you, and I won't name the companies. Um, I helped a corporation, an international corporation, put together a marketing campaign where they brought builders and manufacturers together. And in this sense of putting the manufacturers together, there was a speed dating concept where you bring the two types of organizations, manufacturers and then builders together. There were two different programs totaling 78 manufacturers and approximately 80 builders. I mean, 40 builders, 80 builders throughout the two presentations, 40 and 40, and then 40 and 38. I went around and I introduced myself to all the manufacturers. And, I also, Michael, gave them leads, outstanding leads, where, builders or developers were creating hundreds of homes, and hundreds of, additional commercial, retail facilities within master plan communities. And I knew 7 of the manufacturer reps that were there. And, I followed up with everybody afterwards. I'd given everybody my business card, given them leads. Not only did I give them leads, Michael, I gave them the names of the company, I gave them the contacts, the personal, contacts within the company, and I also gave them the phone numbers of these
Mhm.
individuals.
Did a lot of
How
the
many of
legwork,
these
yeah.
how many of these people do you think followed up with me to say thank you after, the event? It was a 3-day event. After the event, I followed up with everybody, and how many people do you think followed up with me and thanked me?
My best guess, I'll say I don't know how many were given out total, but I'd say maybe 1 or 2, if that.
0.
Oof.
My premise is that
After
when
all
you
that work
start.
you did too.
Yeah, and here comes AI. Now this is roughly 2 years later. And, if you had AI working for you as a manufacturer, can you imagine all of those leads that those 80 builder leads would have been followed up? All of those, I mean, and everybody would have been met, I mean, and when you're speaking to AI, frankly, it's not as if, it's not, and you feel very comfortable in the way that certainly we have worked. And if anyone is paying attention to Alexa or Alex, or whomever, they're getting really good information. And of course, like anything, we have beta tested, our information over and over, and have been able to synthesize everything into a process. So it does feel like you're really speaking to Michael Simon.
Yeah, and that's the way, a lot of people are trying to leverage AI now for all the reasons you just mentioned, especially trying to add that personal tone to it. So it really does feel like you're speaking to the individual themselves. And that's all great. I'm really happy to hear that everything has, come together at this point. And you've got the release, it sounds like, in a few weeks. So, we've talked about the past, we've talked about the present, we've talked a little bit about the future here. So now that, we're in this point in time talking about AI and how it's going to affect the future and everything that you've built so far. Let's look ahead. What do the next 6 to 12 months look like? Any particular, goals on the horizon or
Yeah,
returns that you would like to see from this?
I think your questions are great today, and I really appreciate being here with you and the audience. I think, as we've created the DSA and the DSM, uh, these sales assistants, if you will, I think at some point they'll be able to start closing the buyer. Originally what we're doing right now is basically uh, creating a platform where we can I mean, the whole goal is to ingratiate ourselves through company A, B, C, or D for those companies, and being able to help qualify and answer questions for the buyer, and then turn the buyer into an appointment party where we've set up the appointment with all of the information that's transpired within the communication with the DSA. And so I would anticipate that we'll be able to take this platform and work through the technology and eventually be able to close the buyers. And we'll be able to take the buyer all the way through the selling process. Once we've gotten the agreement, we'll then in the future be able to take the buyer all the way through the completion of the sale and the customer service in an ongoing basis, and thereafter for perpetuity.
It's wild to think about, just how much has changed in the last couple of years. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. That sounds like a very real and achievable goal. And I think you're certainly, well on the way to getting that done. And, as we're coming up on time here, one question that I always like to ask everyone who comes on is, any advice, words of wisdom you have for anybody looking to get into the business today?
Yes. Uh, if you're interested in going into any business,
Mhm.
regardless of whether it's real estate development, building, construction. If you're interested in apparel, if you're interested in hospitality, whatever it might be, Michael, I would encourage the individuals. I learned through my father and my father-in-law. My father-in-law had 16 fabrication glass companies throughout the United States. And both my father and father-in-law I mean, just phenomenal people. And, if we ever have the opportunity to visit again, I can go into detail of what they had taught me about experiential business development. And both companies were international in scope. But I would tell you what they told me: always go to the head of the class. Try to meet the chairman of the board or the president of the companies that you want to work with or the industries in which you work. Go immediately. Ask them for 15 minutes of your time. I was never in, I mean, growing up, I was taught it wasn't said like this, never be intimidated by anyone. I was taught that everybody uses number two leaded pencils. Everybody eats M&Ms. Everybody uses Kleenex. Nobody's better than anybody else. So if somebody's achieved more than the next person, go find out who these achievers are and sit down and learn what makes them tick. Napoleon Hill wrote a wonderful book called Think and Grow Rich. And he wrote a number of other books, but what he did, he actually went around and interviewed the top business industrialists in the 19th century. He met the Goulds and the Vanderbilts, and on and on. And and the Schwabs and the Carnegies, and he asked them, what made you tick? What are the things that really help you grasp and grow? And he wrote a phenomenal book sharing the success stories of these people from basically rags to riches or riches to riches. And the key points that we keep understanding: the more you learn to learn, the more you're going to grow. And the more you learn to learn from people who are successful, and don't go after the bad folks. Go after the great folks. Go after the role models that you want to aspire to become. And again, I can tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly all day long. But what you learn to learn is look at successful people, take advantage of what they have learned, sit down and meet them in your backyard, and they'll give you 15 minutes.
Mhm.
They'll be flattered and they'll give you the assistance. And in every market in which we've gone in to market and sell product and service, whether national or international, we always look for the movers and shakers, and we always try to create some interviews to get a pulse on the local market. Michael, hopefully I've answered a number of questions today. Hopefully I've given you and your audience insight. It's a wonderful pleasure meeting an outstanding individual like you and working with you today.
Thank you, Robert. I really appreciate that. The feeling is mutual. I want to thank you for sharing your story, your battle tested strategies, and for your forward looking take on AI in real estate. And before we wrap up here, for our listeners, where can they go to learn, more about you, what you do, potentially even work with you on some capacity?
Thank you, Michael. Our operators are standing by right now in my cell phone. I'll give my cell phone instead of just the office. And I spell cell, not Cell. I spell it Sell. I have a cell phone and it's area code 303-601-5840. Once again, 303-601-5840. And my email address is robert@northstarsynergies.com. And my website is cleverly uh, pronounced northstarsynergies.com.
Excellent,
Thank you.
Robert. Thank you so much again. This was fantastic. Appreciate you and hope you have a good one. You take care.
Thank you. You too, Michael. Thanks so much.